We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Sunday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. If you're watching on YouTube, I appreciate you working with us through these technical difficulties. This is the second episode that we've tried to do some technical issues. They're all going to be taken care of, but we have ourselves just a major, awesome show here on a Sunday night. Okay, we're going to open all sorts of college football. This Michigan football scandal is finally over. I'm here to tell you, I actually think it's been misrepresented, mistalked about. We'll discuss that. Did you see the Big Ten wants a 28-team college football playoff? What in the world is going on? What are we doing? We'll discuss that. Some interesting news from the North Carolina athletic department. And then from there, did you see what somebody said about the Kentucky basketball program? There was an interesting statement by an opposing head coach. So, yeah, we got a lot of ground to cover, not a lot of time. Before we get started, a couple quick things. One, make sure that you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts as well. Before we do get into the content of the day, the news of the day, this is a pretty important show. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're catching us live, if you're catching us on replay later in the evening, if you're catching us on podcast, we have a couple major announcements. We have now hit the middle of August. And the first major announcement is that as we get closer to college football season, into college basketball, this is as exciting of an announcement as we've had in a long time here on the Aaron Torres Pod. We have ourselves not only a new partner, we have ourselves, in my opinion, one of the best partners we could possibly have. They are our official hotel and casino sponsor. I want to welcome in Circa Casino Resort and Sportsbook as a presenting advertiser and a presenting partner of the Aaron Torres Pod. Okay, so here's the bottom line, is that if you follow the show, about a year ago, producer Matt and I did some live shows from Vegas at the Circa Sportsbook property and Circa property in Las Vegas, okay? It was awesome. We did live shows from the Sportsbook, biggest sportsbook in the world. We also did live shows from their pool, their this incredible stadium swim where they have, these massive TVs. It's basically the best sports bar in the world. Open 365 days a year, every single day, NFL Sunday, Christmas Day when we're getting NFL and NBA games. And so we were there, and as we got ready for this year, we got in touch with Circa. They loved what we were about, but also this is a very important time for Circa because in addition to this world-class property that they have in Las Vegas, they are also opening up a new sportsbook in the state of Kentucky. Yes, Circa Sportsbook is coming to the state of Kentucky, and we are proud to be working with them as they get set to open this coming Saturday at the Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. It is, not far from the Tennessee-Kentucky border, but this is going to be the premier sportsbook on the East Coast, in addition to the premier sportsbook on the West Coast. And so we are so fired up to be working with Circa Sports. Okay, so first of all, this partnership, it's a testament to you guys and girls, okay? We would not be here without you. And transparently, we would not be here if Circa was not aware of the reach that we have in the southeast part of the country, in SEC and Big Ten country, in the state of Kentucky, in the state of Tennessee, in the state of Indiana, those surrounding states. And I think the best part is the part that I am most excited about. All this means is more Torres for everybody, okay? Because we're going to be doing live shows in Las Vegas around the biggest events in Vegas. So remember, College Hoops opens with a doubleheader in Vegas, the opening night of college basketball season, BYU, Villanova, Arizona, Florida. We also have the Players Era event during Thanksgiving week. We'll be doing live shows there basically all College Hoop season long. But then here's the other part. We are going to be at that new sports book in Kentucky doing live shows as we get closer to college basketball season. Louisville's going to be awesome. Kentucky's going to be awesome. And we're going to be doing shows surrounding those big games in the state of Kentucky. Might be even the preseason as Kentucky hosts Purdue and Louisville hosts Kansas. So I just bring it up because this is such a cool partnership. We are going to be working with them all year long, and we're going to be doing live shows in both Vegas and Kentucky. So first off, if you want to be made aware of when we're going to be doing our shows, either in Kentucky or Vegas, maybe you're an Arizona or Florida fan coming out to that event, you can always reach out to me at Aaron Torres podcastquestions@gmail.com. Go ahead and leave all of your information because, we'll get back in touch with you as we get closer to those events. But again, we could not be doing this without you. And I'll say this, if you are in the state of Kentucky, this sports book is going to be one of a kind. I am here to promise you that. Okay, so Franklin, Kentucky, this is, again, about to open this weekend. And here's the cool part. They are doing a launch party 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time in Kentucky as a way to thank all of the new people in the state of Kentucky for coming to the sportsbook. So Circa Sportsbook, again, in Franklin, Kentucky. That is in addition to the Las Vegas Casino. Now, to be transparent, I will not be able to make it to the launch party this Saturday, August 23rd, 11 to 7 p.m. In Franklin, Kentucky. But this is what I need you to do. I need you to show up. I need you to tell everybody Torres sent you. If they don't know who Torres is, they need to find out. They need to let everybody know the reach that we have in that part of the country. And as we get closer to doing live events in that Kentucky facility, we will certainly let you know. Franklin, Kentucky, Circa Sportsbook, we're so fired up. Should mention, by the way, part of the reason Matt and I will not be in Franklin, Kentucky for that launch party is because Circa in Vegas is having their own big bash this weekend. And if you happen to be in Vegas between now and the start of pro football season, you're going to want to check out the two marquee contests that Circa Sportsbook in Las Vegas runs, the Circa Millions and Circa Survivor. Okay, so Circa Millions is the ultimate pick'em contest. $6 million in grand prizes, $1,000 per entry, 5 entries per person. Winner takes home, how about this, $1 million. So basically, you enter, it's a standard pick'em contest, 5 games a week against the spread. Not only that $1 million first prize, but quarterly and season-long prizes. And oh, by the way, the worst entry also gets $100,000 as well. So that is pretty cool. You obviously have until the week one of pro football to get going. And should mention, on top of that, have you heard about Circa Survivor? Okay, so Circa Survivor, $1.5 million. This is a Survivor challenge. Remember, we did these for the Aaron Torres pod in March Madness. This is like that on steroids. $1,000 per entry. It's a Survivor pool. You pick one team every single week. And remember, you can only pick a team once. So you pick the Chiefs in week 1 and they win. You don't get them for the rest of the year. And what's also worth noting, Thanksgiving, Black Friday are their own week. And of course, Christmas is its own week as well. So make sure to save those teams. If you get to 20-0, you are the champion. Of course, if nobody gets to 20-0, multiple people will win that challenge. But again, Circa. We are so fired up to be working with Circa. Should mention, by the way, you know who else is back for the fall? And this is why I'm so fired up. It's our old friends, our old partners. You remember working with SeatGeek during March Madness? Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. We love working with SeatGeek, and they love working with us because they are back for the football season. Okay, so bottom line is we're 6 days away from week 0 in college football. Your favorite team, if they don't play week 0, they certainly play week 1. At some point, you're going to need tickets to watch your favorite college football team, maybe your favorite NFL team, maybe Major League Baseball. Wherever you get your tickets, make sure to use SeatGeek. Again, America's #1 ticketing app. The thing that I love about it is that, how about this? They rate every ticket on a 1 to 10 basis. Of course, you need to know how good the seat is before you buy it. SeatGeek does that, right? So SeatGeek.com. Here's the best part. In addition to being able to see in real time where the tickets are, how good they are. By the way, if you see a green dot, that's go, as in go ahead and purchase. Red dot means maybe not so much. Bring it up, because here's the best part. Listeners of the Aaron Torres pod, we get a very special offer with SeatGeek. All you got to do, use promo code Torres. That's promo code TORRES. Promo code Torres. You get, how about this? $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. It doesn't have to be for college football. You can wait till college basketball, NFL game, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, concert, whatever. If they're selling tickets on SeatGeek, you can use promo code Torres to get going there. Thank you to SeatGeek. We are so fired up to have them back with the Aaron Torres pod. All right, so there was a lot of information there off the top. We truly appreciate your support. I'll tell you what, though, at some point we got to talk sports, right? So with that said, there is no more time to waste. Let's go ahead and get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, we were traveling on last Thursday, Friday, and so we got to go ahead and talk about this Michigan story that obviously came out since the last time we recorded, okay? And so we all remember the big quote-unquote Michigan sign-stealing scandal. We all remember the details. Michigan had a person on staff. His name was Connor Stallions. He wasn't even an assistant coach. He was orchestrating multiple people going to games in person to record the other team's signs. And so it became a big deal during Michigan's national championship run. I'll add this. Didn't really feel like that big of a deal by the end of the championship run. Michigan beats Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama to send Nick Saban into retirement, and Washington in the national championship game. It felt like by the end of that season, everybody felt like they were the deserving national champions. Well, I bring it up because over the weekend, we finally got a resolution to that sign-stealing scandal. And it was funny because Thursday you started to hear rumblings. Friday we get it officially. Well, I'll say this. If you were expecting a big, bold statement from the NCAA, you kind of didn't get it, okay? There is no banner coming down. There is no postseason ban. Instead, Michigan will get hit with a $20 million plus fine, starts at $20 million. And on top of that, they will also... a couple coaches are suspended. Sharon Moore has a multiple game suspension this year. A game was added on. Jim Harbaugh gets a 10-game show cause. But I'll say this. Everybody on the internet streets was all sorts of mad on Friday. Well, I'll tell you what, my stance, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Let's get to it. This was a nothing story in real time. And to take it a step further, I think it was largely a nothing punishment, which largely fit a nothing crime. Don't tell me Michigan wasn't a deserving national champion, because ultimately, I think when we peel back the layers on this, the bottom line is they were a deserving champion, and they are the rightful champion. I'll say that I think they're actually, frankly, one of the more deserving champions in college football history. By the way, Michigan fans, if you're watching, this is not an Ohio State shirt. Let the record show, okay? But let's go ahead and dive in, okay? Because to me, listen, I'll be transparent. If you had asked me the day the first story broke, listen, I was like everybody else. I felt like it was a big deal. I felt like it was the end of the world. What does it mean? College football, oh my goodness, integrity of the game. And then I think as you start to peel back the layers, you realize a couple things. One, to a degree, everybody is sign stealing, okay? Everybody knows some degree of signs of the other team's signs. Every team is constantly changing their signs under the assumption that people are stealing their signs. It's worth noting the rule was so dumb. The rule of being able to, record in person was so dumb that guess what? The NCAA immediately changed the rule in real time. And so to me, again, if you had asked me the day before, or the day this story broke, I felt like it was probably a big deal. And then as you go on, if you know football, if you've been around football, it's not that big of a deal. As a matter of fact, I actually thought Joel Klatt from Fox Sports explained it best. He was on Colin Cowherd at some point during that season, and basically acknowledged the more that the less you know about football, the bigger of a deal it felt in the moment. Let's hear what Joel Klatt had to say back in 2023 about the accusations.
Something similar, although not totally similar, you could say about football. The less you know about football, the more you think this impacted the actual outcome of the game. The more you know about football, the more you don't minimize it. You know there was an advantage gained here or there, but it's certainly not every play. You see these clips on social media of like, it was third down and they knew it was a pass. It's like, yeah, because the running back was in front of the quarterback. Like, just by alignment, I knew that it was a pass, right? So I think that the less you know about football, the more you overblow this whole situation.
So there's Joel Klatt explaining it about as well as I think you possibly can. The more you know about football, the less. Listen, I remember in real time people, video being shared on social media. Oh my God, it was 3rd and 14. They knew a pass was coming. Yeah, they knew a pass was coming because it was 3rd and 14. That's why. It's not because of some intricate spreadsheet that Connor Stallions had. It was because the bottom line is a lot of times you know what's coming based on down, distance, situation, whatever. And again, to a degree, everybody does this. To me, here's the other part, okay, is that first off, Michigan won, and I said this a minute ago, Michigan won its biggest games after Connor Stallions got fired, right? So again, you could argue that in real time, oh my God, what does it mean? They beat Nebraska by 1 million points and they beat whoever by 1 million points. And then you realize, oh wait, Connor Stallions wasn't there when they went to Penn State and basically ran the ball down Penn State's throat. Michigan fans will know, what was it, 35, 40 times in a row that Michigan ran the football right at Penn State. They had no answer for it. 2 weeks later, they beat Ohio State for a then third straight time. Then you're preparing to play Nick Saban in Alabama in the Rose Bowl. You beat them and you beat Washington. And so to me, you know why Michigan won the national championship that year? It wasn't because of sign stealing. It was because they had the best team. And oh, by the way, that's not even my opinion at this point. That's an objective fact, right? Because what is the big argument all the time? Whenever the SEC, the SEC, last year they didn't even have a team play for the national championship. The year before they didn't have a team play for the national championship. But the argument is always, the SEC produces the most NFL players, so that means that they're amazing. Okay, cool. Well, guess what? You know who produced the most NFL players in 2023? Yeah, the Michigan Wolverines did. After that national championship, 13 picks overall, one of the biggest hauls of NFL draft prospects ever. So don't tell me it was only because they had signs. No, they had 13 players drafted that year. J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, on and on. Worth noting, this past year, 3 guys that were part of that team also went in the first round. Mason Graham to the Cleveland Browns, Kenneth Grant on the defensive line, and of course, Colston Loveland to the Bears. Will Johnson also would have been a first-round pick this year if he hadn't been injured. So on top of having 13 guys picked 2 years ago, you had 4 essential first-rounders on your team this year. And I was thinking about this. It brings me back to something that I remember PJ Fleck saying in real time in that season, okay? So PJ Fleck in Minnesota played Michigan that year. So for anyone saying, oh, they got lucky, they knew the signs, I want to hear what PJ Fleck had to say after playing Michigan during that 2023 season.
They're as good as advertised. That's. I said this on the radio a second ago. I think they're the best football team I've seen in 11 years of being a head coach. I've never seen a football team like that deep. I'm not sure if this is true, but I was told this walking off the field. I think they traveled 75 people and maybe played like 74 of them. I don't know. I mean, they're one of the deepest teams, one of the best teams, one of the biggest teams, fastest teams, strongest teams, and they do not make mistakes. They are truly like a boa constrictor, and they do not beat themselves. They're very good at each position. They're very aligned with everything that they do. They know who they are, and they go and execute.
They're the best team I've ever seen as a head coach. I'm sorry. That's not signs. That's not this. That's not that. Again, the NFL agrees. 13 players drafted, 3 more first rounders a year later. By the way, they're going to have more guys off that year's team drafted this coming season as well. So bottom line is this story was always overblown to me. And here is the other part. When people, and this kind of bothered me on Friday, when people say that the punishment wasn't fair, They didn't get enough. A Jim Harbaugh suspension when he's never coming back to college football, a $20 million fine. You know what I say to that? That is fundamentally wrong, because here is the bottom line. This is easy to forget. Michigan was already punished during that season, okay? People forget this, and this is the most important part, and I don't understand why I am the only one that remembers this. In 2023, during that season, the Big Ten made the quite literal, unprecedented move of suspending Jim Harbaugh mid-season without an investigation, okay? It's easy to forget this now. But remember, in 2023, when all of these stories break, the Big Ten, Tony Petitti, and we're going to talk about his lame playoff, idea in a second. But this was when I knew Tony Petitti was a guy with no backbone, and I have no respect for the guy. I'm sorry, it's the truth. But remember, that season, what happened? The coaches in the Big Ten complained. The ADs in the Big Ten complained. They had a private Zoom meeting with 13 ADs, 13 school presidents, and Michigan not even allowed to be on the call to defend themselves. In the process, the coaches and ADs demand that Tony Petitti do something, essentially saying, look, you cannot let them get away with this. Punishment from the NCAA isn't going to come for years, which is obviously what happened over the course of the last couple of days. What did Tony Petitti do? And one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen. First off, there's not just the fact that he suspended Jim Harbaugh midseason. He goes to Michigan on a Sunday night to meet with the administration there. We expect on Sunday night that Jim Harbaugh might actually be suspended. Then Sunday comes, nothing happens. Then Monday comes, nothing happens. Then Tuesday comes, nothing happens. How about this? It is announced as Michigan is flying to play Penn State that they announce the suspension. Jim Harbaugh, we don't have the video, but there is video on social media of the team landing and finding out on the tarmac that Jim Harbaugh is suspended for that game. He's also suspended for the Ohio State game. And so don't tell me that this team didn't get enough of a punishment. This team is the only team in the history of college sports that got a punishment in real time, that had their head coach suspended for the 3 arguably biggest games of the regular season, the 2 best opponents plus Maryland on the road, and they survived. They beat Penn State without Jim Harbaugh. They beat Ohio State without Jim Harbaugh. He comes back. They win the Big Ten championship, Alabama, Washington in the college football playoff. Michigan served its time. Michigan served its punishment. Don't tell me it's nothing. Congrats to the 2023 Michigan Wolverines. You are a deserved national champion. All right, we're off to a rip-roaring start. We appreciate everybody tuning in here on a Sunday night. This is what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Speaking of Tony Petitti, I want to go ahead and anything of I want to talk about this terrible 28-team playoff idea that he has. Worst idea I've ever heard. There was an interesting story out of UNC, but also, how about this? A very interesting story. Opposing coach kind of coming at Mark Pope and the Kentucky Wildcats. We're going to discuss all that. By the way, producer Matt, I'm not putting down this mic, so if there's any interesting questions, we can get to them on the other side. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Auburn fans, we already know the freeze warning has hit the plains. Make sure to get your freeze warning t-shirts. Also, Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Comments are all over the place, but producer Matt, pull up whatever you got for me. All right. Big Ten's greatest embarrassment, fans who praise their gang for violations. I think that's a knock on Michigan. Listen, Ohio State fans, you lost to Michigan because they were the better team. For 3 years in a row. They weren't better last year. You just choked that one. Don't blame sign stealing. Don't blame Connor Stallions, whatever. Bottom line is whatever. I don't even know what else there is to say, but Big Ten's embarrassment. Cletus says, I bet there are multiple teams trying to steal like Michigan. It's just that Michigan got caught and other teams haven't. Listen, Cletus, I tend to, you've been great with the college football commentary the last couple weeks. I agree with you 100%. It's indisputable. Other team, everyone sign steals. Coaches, by the way, at the beginning of that week, you can go back. Deion Sanders, Matt Rule, there was a bunch of others that said, yeah, everybody steals signs. We're changing our signs constantly. So yes, Michigan got caught. Yes, they were maybe a little bit aggressive. I'm sorry, when you beat Ohio State, Penn State, Alabama, Washington, Iowa without Connor Stallions, it ain't the sign stealing. It's because you had 25 NFL dudes on the roster. As PJ Flex said, that was the best team he's ever seen. I can't say it's the best team I've ever seen, but it's certainly in the conversation. Anything else, Matt, before we get to this? By the way, I saw somebody say, Torres, can I get a discount on Circa Survivor Pool? I will look into it. But for those of you who missed the show, Circa Sportsbook, Circa Casino, the official gambling and hotel partner of the Aaron Torres pod. People, we've come a long way. I couldn't have done this without your support. I know people are ragging on Torres. Oh, the internet sucks. Oh, his takes suck. Listen, the numbers on this show say otherwise. We really, genuinely appreciate your support. You know what I don't appreciate? Tony Petitti and his nonsense college football playoff crap, okay? So let's go ahead and dive into this story because this story came out over the weekend. Thankfully, I have a full head of hair because I would have lost it all by now, stressing about the future of college football and the college football playoff. I'd certainly have more gray hair. Bottom line, college football playoff. We know that we just got to 12 teams. It wasn't perfect, but I think it was what fans wanted. I think there are things you can pick apart about year one, but I think it was largely success, right? Of course, that's not good enough. Everybody then decides that we need to get to 16. And really the last 4 or 5 months, it's been a pissing contest between the Big Ten and the SEC over what the format looks like. We've talked about it a million times. SEC wants 5 conference champions plus 11 at-large bids. Big Ten wants this convoluted thing where 4 teams from the Big Ten and SEC get automatic bids. That's how you get to 16, blah, 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 blah. They call it the 4-4-2-2-1 model. Didn't know you needed calculus to figure out a college football playoff bracket, okay? So that was where we stood as of Saturday morning. I guess it was Saturday morning. Then I woke up, was on my last day of vacation, probably till next June, and I see Pete Thamel tweet out, quote, if you have the tweet, Matt, go ahead and give it to me right now. Sources. The Big Ten has begun populating an expanded college football playoff idea, which could include 24 or 28 teams. Just an idea at this point. Forgive me as I throw up in my mouth. Okay, that last part wasn't on the tweet, but that is the reality. And listen, we're going to get into why this is a terrible idea in a minute. But at the end of the day, I really only have one thing to say about this, And that is what I tweeted when I saw the Pete Thamel news. It is that the powers that be in college football, it's pretty simple at this point. Old dudes in suits are trying to ruin everything that we love about our sports just to put a few extra bucks in their pockets. Never forget that. If you're not following me on Aaron _ Torres on Twitter, Aaron _ Torres on Twitter, that was where that little gem came from. But that's my biggest takeaway. The dudes in suits, and I hate to be the guy, oh, they never played, they never this, they never that. The old dudes in suits just want to make more money for themselves, put more money in their pockets, and they are going to ruin everything that we love about college sports, okay? So first of all, let me say this. I want this on the record. I want this on my tombstone, okay? I was never somebody that felt like we needed to go to 12 teams in the college football playoff. I thought that realistically, 4 teams was kind of about right. By the way, remember how many blowouts we had in the 4-team college football playoff era? Remember back in those days, the reality that we had a lot of bad games, even in a 4-team era? And the truth is, if you go back throughout the history of that 4-team era, listen, I'm not going to go back to the 1950s or whatever, but in the 4-team playoff era, realistically, most years there were 2, maybe 3 teams that were good enough to win a national championship. You get past 4, 5, 6, it's kind of a S show, to be honest. And really, you get past 2 or 3, that's really about where the national championship tier ended. But I also admit that as we get deeper into this transfer portal era, you can't build rosters like you used to. You can't build as much depth as you used to. I get that we live in a world that there are probably now more teams. I don't think the top is quite as good, but I think team like 4 through 8 is probably better than it's been, certainly in the last 20 or so years. We even did a segment last week basically acknowledging, like, look, I think there's 8 teams that can win the national championship this year. So I understand that 4 probably wasn't going to work for the future. And I understand there's a lot of programs that just want access to a 12-team playoff. Indiana fans, I don't want to speak for anybody, probably happy that they had a chance to play in the playoff. Tennessee fans were hoping to build on it, hoping to have their quarterback back, but it doesn't work out. They had last year, and they know that they can compete at the top of the sport. So I was never anti-4, but I was okay with 12. But once we get to 28, okay, I think this proves exactly what I said. There is no reason to do this other than for old dudes to put money in their pocket. You can argue with me on it. You can debate me on it. You can whatever with me on it. It's indisputable at this point, okay? And the thing that I think bothers me the most about the state of college football is the fact that a couple things. One, and this is the most, to me, this is what it all boils down to, right? I'm a simple customer service guy. I like to give you, the consumer, what you want. On this show, in life, if I ran a restaurant, if I ran a hotel, whatever. And so to me, with college football had the greatest regular season that ever existed. Now, to a degree, it still does, but I also think we cannot deny that it is, it was to some degree watered down last year by a 12-team playoff. That's the truth. It's indisputable. You can fight me on it. Ohio State lost as a 20-point favorite at home to Michigan, and it did not matter. Alabama lost to 2 unranked opponents, and they were still arguing at the end of the year that with a 3rd loss, they should be in the playoff. That is where it is, and it has undoubtedly impacted the regular season. Now, can you imagine what college football will look like with a 28-team playoff? By the way, for people who aren't good at math, according to that Pete Thamel report, get this. A 28-team playoff would feature, how about this, 7 automatic bids. 7 automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC to the college football playoff, okay? 7 automatic bids. I don't even know who would have been the top 7 last year, but you would have had some truly mediocre teams in the SEC and, more importantly, the Big Ten that would have called themselves playoff teams. And so to me, at that point, you've just completely devalued the regular season, because when you're talking about 7 teams from a conference, you're talking about realistically, 7 and 5 teams getting in? 8 and 4 teams with no great wins? Like, what are we even doing here? And so to me, this goes back to what I said. I think the most frustrating thing about college sports, there are changes that can be made for the betterment of everybody, even if I don't personally like them. I think the 4-team to the 12-team playoff is a great example of that. I don't love the 12-team playoff, but I think it's for the betterment of college football. But what I think we're seeing increasingly is that there is no regard for the consumer in these decisions. And I think more importantly, it's taking away what we love about college football and college sports in general. Listen, we all love college sports. You wouldn't be watching this show if you didn't, okay? But at the same time, just think about what being 7-5 and being able to make the playoff means. It means that every regular season game means absolutely nothing. You just can't be abjectly terrible and you're going to the postseason and no regular season game matters. Listen, this is the best and worst thing about college football is that you have that first or second, even in the 12-team playoff era, mostly first and second. You have that second loss. You're walking out of the stadium with a pit in your stomach, basically sitting there like, man, our season might be over. Now, can you imagine a third, a fourth, a fifth loss? The regular season is completely devalued, and now it just becomes a postseason tournament. And listen, I'll say this. I clearly love college basketball. We have 2 basketball topics that I'm going to get to in a minute. But I also acknowledge I'm pretty much the only one that watches regular season college basketball. That, yeah, you might watch your team if you're an Auburn fan or a UConn fan or a Kentucky fan, but the national discourse on college basketball is very minimal. Well, college football is going to be the same. Listen, if we want a playoff with this many teams in football, we'll just tune into this thing called the NFL. What made college football different was the fact that it is different, a different product with different stakes, different meaning, different this, different that, but every single Saturday mattered. We're already at the point where you can kind of say it doesn't, and beyond that, going beyond 12, I think really puts you in a precarious situation. And so to me, this is on the suits. By the way, the last thing I would say, this is why I fight against college basketball NCAA tournament expansion as well. Because I've had people say to me, Torres, 68 teams, 72, 76, who cares? It's just a couple more teams. It's just 8 more teams. Here's the problem. Once old dudes in suits get money, guess what? They're not going to take less. They're not going to be satisfied. They're going to keep tweaking and changing and altering something that we love until the thing that we love no longer exists. And so with college basketball NCAA tournament expansion, why I'm fighting so hard to stay at 68 is because it's not going to, if you give them 72 or 76, it's not going to end at 72 or 76. In 5 years, it's going to be, we got to get to 80. We got to get to 84. We got to get to 110. And then it becomes the thing that we never loved in the first place. So I could go on, but as a college football collective, we got to put a stop to this nonsense. First of all, I just think if we can't agree on a 16-team format, why don't we try 12 teams for a couple years? Because like I said, 12 teams wasn't perfect. You could argue that Indiana, just because they were 11-1, did not have a resume worthy of being in the college football playoff. Now, I disagree, but you can make that argument. You can make the argument for SMU. You could argue that Alabama last year or South Carolina or Ole Miss last year deserved to be in as a 3-loss team. So why don't we figure out what the 12-team playoff should be before we go to 16, let alone 28 teams? Told you last segment, not a fan of Tony Petitti. Don't believe in what he's about. And I don't think that's changing. I don't think it's changing one bit. 28-team college football playoff. Spare me. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, come back. When we do, 2 hoops topics we got to go ahead and get to. One, interesting news out of UNC, what it means for the basketball and football programs. Also, somebody take a dig at Kentucky basketball and Mark Pope. We'll discuss that next. Quick break. Be right back.
What's up, everybody? It's AT, and I've told you before, when I'm on the road, when I'm podcasting, sometimes you end up looking like a slob. Look at me, mismatched socks, I'm wearing shorts. What am I doing? The folks at FioBox said, Torres, let's get you some fresh gear to look better when you're on camera. Well, what do you think? This is all part of the spring collection for FioBox. These jeans, perfect when I want to go to games, casual, serious, business casual, you name it. Got the quarter zip. And oh, by the way, we got this perfect zip. This is the perfect spring, summer zip that you can wear when you're out with friends. Maybe it gets a little chilly. Maybe it's a little chilly in the morning. Perfect for all occasions. So this is what I need you to do. If you like what you see, and you should, what I need you to do is visit Fileback.com. That's Fileback.com, F-I-O-B-O-C. By the way, Fileback has a special promo code for listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Use promo code Torres and get 20% off your purchase. Thank you again to Fileback. By the way, make sure that you're following them on social media at Fileback, F-I-O-B-O-C. Thank you, Fileback.
All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Two topics that I do want to go ahead and get to. Saw a very interesting piece of news. It involved the North Carolina Tar Heels and their athletic department over the weekend. So bottom line, at North Carolina, like at a lot of places, listen, the rev share stuff I know is kind of nerdy, but at the same time, I do think it's important, right? So everybody knows. Give me one sec here. Give me one sec here. Producer Matt, we can edit this out. Still having technical difficulties in the old Torres house, but that's okay. All right. We're going to pretend like that text never happened. I will edit it out for the audio version of the pod. Let's do this again. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment of the show. So good to be back. Do want to wrap with two basketball stories. I see the Kentucky fans in the chat getting impatient. We will talk about another coach apparently taking a dig at Mark Pope in a minute. But I saw an interesting story with North Carolina. And to me, I do think it's an interesting story on kind of the state of college athletics in general. And it's just an interesting story because of what college athletics is going to look like and the future of college athletics as we get deeper into this rev share era. Okay. So I know it's a little nerdy, right? But we all know every school gets $20.5 million to spend on their athletes. That's the rule right now. The money is going to go up here in the next couple years, but right now it's at $20.5 million. I bring it up because every school is allowed to spend the $20.5 million how they want. Okay. Listen, I don't know this, but UConn, right? Huge women's basketball program. South Carolina, maybe the same. That you could spend 10%, 20% on women's basketball. I don't know if anybody will, but you can. Arkansas, Tennessee, you got a great baseball program. You could spend money on that. So I bring it up because there are no rules, but it seemed like the guideline that was coming down from the NCAA was you spend 75% on football, 15% on men's basketball, and then you sprinkle a little bit everywhere else, okay? But where it becomes interesting is, like I said, there are no rules. And I think with this rev share, when you can get somebody publicly to talk about where they're spending money, it kind of tells you where the athletic department aligns, okay? We did the story a few weeks ago. Matt Norlander, CBS Sports, reported that Kentucky basketball was spending up to 45% of its rev share on men's basketball. Now, UK came out and said that wasn't true. I tend to believe Norlander, another conversation for another day. But Kentucky clearly is prioritizing basketball. Well, an interesting story did come out this week where North Carolina's AD actually went on the record and said exactly how he plans on spending his rev share. This is interesting in the way that it is going to be divvied up. Bubba Cunningham, okay, he is the AD at North Carolina. You may remember him because he was the tournament chair. We'll save that conversation for another day. But here's what he said. He said, this was on the Inside Carolina podcast. He said the settlement itself from the House is 75, 15%, 5-5. 75% for football, 15% for men's basketball, 5% for women's basketball, 5% to everybody else. He said that is one way to do it, and a lot of schools are going to do it that way. When I looked at how we generate commercial activity, that's not the way ours is being broken down. Ours is broken down 65% to football, 35% to men's basketball. I know that's 100% right there. So we don't go over 100%, but that's roughly where it is. And then baseball next, women's basketball fourth. So in other words, virtually all of the money is going to go to football or men's basketball. Sorry, women's sports. Don't know how that works with Title IX. I'll leave that to the lawyers. Sorry, UNC baseball, which is obviously very good, but they are not going to get as much as other people are. Why it's interesting, though. I think it's very interesting because actually, to me, I think it speaks to the health of North Carolina football under Bill Belichick. And I think it proves that North Carolina, as we're going into a make or break year for Hubert Davis, whatever the situation is, North Carolina is not going to take a backseat in basketball on the national stage. And I think it's actually a very interesting conversation, okay? First of all, I kind of just like the transparency of it. He's just basically like, look, here's the deal. The exact quote he said was, when I looked at it, how we generate commercial activity, that's not the way ours is broken down. In other words, he was like, well, here's the deal. Football and men's basketball make about 100% of our revenue, so they're getting 100% of the payment. I have no problem with it. Again, I get that, it's different at every school and Title IX stuff, this and that, but I have no problem with it. But what I think is interesting is, first of all, he kind of acknowledges like football is a big deal here, but it's not quite what it is at other places. But I also think the 65% to me, as weird as it sounds, I think it speaks to the fact that he's very confident with where they are with Bill Belichick. Now, remember, Bill Belichick, what was the big story with Belichick when he took the job besides his girlfriend? The big story is that he has a buyout effective as of June 1st, 2025, I guess it would have been, that basically said that if he wanted to leave for any job, including the NFL, he could do it with no buyout. And so to me, I think that if you are going to give Bill Belichick a little bit less money than most other football coaches are going to have, you have to be confident that he's happy there and that he plans on being there for the long term. Now, the good news is, if you are a UNC fan, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the NFL has kind of passed him by, just like I think the NFL has kind of passed John Gruden by. And so I think he's staying in college football. I think he's planting his roots. I'll say this too. I don't know how many people follow this. North Carolina actually has a pretty good recruiting class right now. So they did well in the portal this offseason. But right now they have like the 16th, 17th ranked recruiting class in the country for 2026. So this notion that Bill Belichick wasn't going to be able to recruit, it's just not true. Number 4 class in the ACC behind only Miami, Florida State, and Clemson, who, no disrespect, Carolina fans, but I think that's probably who you expect to be behind. So there is that element of it. Oh, by the way, when he does leave, Steve Belichick, his son, will be ready to take over. Remember, by the way, whatever you think of the Belichick family, Steve had one of the elite defenses in college football last year at Washington. Now, from the basketball side, I actually think it's pretty interesting as well, because to me, there has been a very clear messaging from that athletic department about the basketball program as Hubert Davis goes into a make or break year. And if you remember, we talked about this earlier in the summer, right? After that roster gets put together, Luka Bogovic, the international player who just got to the States. If you remember, when Luka Bogovic signed, there was a report shortly thereafter that North Carolina spent $14 million. Now, this is in the pre-rev share era on its basketball roster. And it came from Inside Carolina, the best North Carolina outlet basically available. Okay, this wasn't some blog or some whatever. It wasn't said in passing. It was a report. And that report to me very much reflected that North Carolina wanted it known publicly, hey, we're letting the world know that we gave Hubert Davis every single thing that he needed to compete at the highest level. And if he can't do it this year, then he got to get the heck out and move out the way. And so to me, I think it's reassuring for Hubert Davis to know that, hey, man, if I just do what I'm supposed to do, I can stay at my alma mater and I'm going to have resources that are going to match pretty much anybody in college basketball, because 35% not great at math, but it's about $7 million. And frankly, it's about 50% more than most teams are going to pay in college basketball. So Hubert Davis, just, to quote Al Davis, just win, baby. You're going to be just fine. And if you win, you are going to have resources that are matched probably in the ACC only by Duke, maybe by Louisville, maybe by nobody. Maybe NC State would be in that mix. But for the most part, you're going to have resources to succeed. Where I think it's also interesting, I think that's Bubba Cunningham kind of putting out the bat signal to any future potential North Carolina basketball coach. Because if it does not go well, what Bubba Cunningham just basically said was as follows. He said, bottom line, end of story, guess what? Is that whoever you are out there, you are going to be given every single thing that is needed to compete at the highest level in college sports. So you need the biggest budget, we got the biggest budget. You need the biggest NIL, we got the biggest NIL. And I think that's interesting as we go into this rev share era of college sports, because listen, I forget if we've talked about it or not, but I think for most schools, it's going to be really hard to really compete at the highest level in everything. And I think schools are going to have to pick and choose, right? Kentucky, we talked about it. 45% is going to basketball. And even if that number is not right, it's going to be a higher percentage than most. Football, to a degree, is going to suffer. But the inverse of that is Georgia's probably going to get more than just about anybody. And you got to figure it out, Mike White, or you got to figure it out whoever. A school like Texas might prioritize football and men's baseball. UConn, I'm just using, and I don't have access to what UConn's doing, even though it's my alma mater. They might put more money into women's basketball, but I don't know that you can be great at everything in the rev share era. And so why this is important is because now you can go out to whatever candidates that are out there and basically say whatever you need, whatever you might not be getting at your school, oh, baby, you can come here and get it, right? So like imagine if you're Todd Golden. Todd Golden wins a national championship, but respectfully, Florida is always going to be a football first school. And I'm not saying it happened this summer, but maybe in a year from now, maybe in 3 years from now, maybe whenever that North Carolina job opens, Todd Golden doesn't feel like he has what he needs to succeed. Well, North Carolina is going to double my rev share pool, and I have twice as much money to spend as I do at Florida. I got to probably consider taking that job. Nate Oates, Alabama. Listen, it's no secret. Alabama was not one of the biggest spenders in the SEC in basketball this offseason. It was Kentucky. It was probably Arkansas, maybe Auburn. It wasn't Alabama. And I don't think Alabama year over year is going to have what they need to succeed at the highest level. And so to me, Nate Oates, I thought he was either going to retire at Bama or go to the NBA. I never thought he'd coach at another place in college basketball. But if he just feels like, hey, Kalen DeBoer is getting everything and I'm getting table scraps and I can't compete with the top of this league, then I'm going to have to consider going elsewhere. And so to me, again, I know we're nerding out a little bit on this story. I think it's a pretty interesting story, and I think it speaks to North Carolina feeling like they have to feel very good about the state of their football team and at the very least the future of their basketball team as we enter this rev share era. All right, there is one more topic I want to get to. It's kind of fitting, and I do think that it kind of makes sense as to like why we are talking about this, one, right after that story, but two, in the bigger picture of today's show. We love college hoops. We're never going to stop talking college hoops, and we're going to talk a little Kentucky basketball. Now, real quick, if you missed the beginning of the show, we have exciting news. Circa Sportsbook, Circa Casino, Circa Resort and Hotel in Las Vegas is our new gaming and hotel sponsor. We're going to be doing a bunch of live shows in Las Vegas, but guess what? We're going to be doing a bunch of live shows at their new sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky. So if you're near Franklin, Kentucky, it's near Bowling Green, Kentucky. I think it's only about an hour from Nashville. Reach out. Hit me up, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com, so you can know when I'm in town, because we're going to be working with Circa all football, all basketball season long. Cannot wait to get down to Kentucky. With that said, there was a Kentucky basketball story that we got to go ahead and address. And it involves a lot of what we just talked about, right? Is that it has been an awesome offseason for Mark Pope. I think it's been an awesome 18 months since the day he took the job. Takes the job, puts together a roster. I was higher on them than most. It doesn't really matter because once the season starts, they start kicking butt and taking names. They beat Duke basically on opening night. They beat Gonzaga. They beat whoever, Florida in the opener of the season. They sweep Tennessee in the regular season. They have a great season at Kentucky. It ends in the Sweet 16, second weekend since 2019. Everybody's feeling good. Yet as good as Mark Pope's regular season was, I think the offseason's been even better, okay? He obviously had a lot of resources at his disposal. We just talked about rev share, divvy, and whatever, and this was obviously, in theory, the last uncapped year of NIL. And so I just bring it up because he had a lot of money to spend, and he put together a roster that I believe is good enough to compete for a national championship. Mo Diabate, Denzel Aberdeen, Jalen Lowe, Otega Owe, Brandon Garrison, Malachi Moreno, Jasper Johnson. The list goes on and on. The team is deep. It's stacked. It's loaded. By the way, I missed some guys. Don't get mad at me if I forgot somebody important. Oh, by the way, Jaden Quayens, who might be a top 10 pick a year from now. So I bring it up because the roster is stacked. The resources are there. And I think Mark Pope has a team good enough to win the national championship in his second year. Now, why that's interesting is because over the weekend, apparently there are coaches that have basically decided if Kentucky doesn't win a national championship, given everything that Mark Pope had at his disposal this offseason, then he's kind of a failure as far as other SEC coaches are concerned. Okay, so interesting story from a buddy, Jacob Polachek, Kentucky Sports Radio. Now, this was on the KSR Plus page, so I don't know anything outside of what was posted on Twitter, and I certainly don't share stuff from behind paywalls. But Jacob Polachek tweeting out from his account, quote, new story on KSR Plus. Several SEC coaches talked anonymously about Kentucky's 2025-26 roster. Quote, it's national championship or bust when you're paying double, triple, or quadruple what everybody else in the country is paying. Okay. So first of all, don't know who has too much sodium in their diet because that is a lot of salt and a lot of shade being thrown at Kentucky basketball. But I do think it's an interesting quote, and I do think it's an interesting conversation to have. So let's go ahead and dive in. First off, the first thing that comes to mind when I see that quote, we actually did a segment on is it national championship or bust for Kentucky at some point in the summer. Now, I think it was funny because with Kentucky fans, there was two different ways in which they approached that. One, they basically said, this is Kentucky. We always have national championship or bust expectations. And then I think there were others that were like, listen, we always expect to win at the highest level, but saying national championship or bust is just a stupid way to approach things, and a stupid way to approach a season. Now, I'm never going to tell a fan how to feel about their team. And certainly the stakes are as high at Kentucky as they are anywhere. The one thing that I will say that does stand out to me about those quotes from those Kentucky fans or from those SEC coaches, I kind of lean with I think I don't ever want to say if you feel like it's national championship or bust, you have the wrong opinion. I do think it's a little bit unfair sometimes. And it's funny, like to me, I always say this, it's about the journey, not the destination. So what do I mean by that? Okay. So I'll give you an example. I was on a radio interview about a week ago in Utah with a BYU station. Okay. Actually, it was a BYU and Utah station, another conversation. But they basically asked me, they said, BYU has never made a Final Four in school history. We've only made, I think, one Elite Eight. They didn't say I think, I'm saying I think. And so they basically asked me, they said, so Torres, if we don't at least make the Elite Eight, is the season considered a failure? Is it Elite Eight, Final Four, or bust? And I said, well, look, there are two ways to look at it. What if you go 31-2, 29-2 during the regular season, and you're the number one team in the country, and you win the Big 12, and you're the number one overall seed in the tournament, and then something super weird happens and you lose in the Sweet 16? Like, does that mean the season was a failure? I mean, it'd be a disappointment. I don't know if you'd call it a failure when you won 30-plus games, won the Big 12 regular season, Big 12 tournament. And I said, conversely, imagine the opposite. Imagine you make that Elite Eight, but you're kind of 19-12 in the regular season, losing the opening round of the Big 12 tournament. Team doesn't play well, a lot of weird losses, disappointing season. Then you somehow get hot in March. Does that make the season somehow more enjoyable? So, I'm always a journey, not the destination kind of guy. And I do think it's a little ridiculous to say anything is national championship or bust. And again, I'll let Kentucky fans tell me if that's fair or not. But my counter to that is basically I don't necessarily see it. What I will say, though, it is very clear, and I think even Mark Pope would say this, expectations have certainly changed going into year two, okay? Year one, it was feel good. It was, get this thing back to where it was, get Kentucky back to being Kentucky, all those cliches. But at the end of the day, the goals are still to win national championships, and to Mark Pope's credit, he gets that. What is his famous quote? I understand the assignment. I know my job is to put number 9 in this building, the 9th national championship for Kentucky basketball. And if I don't, y'all are going to find somebody who can. And so the thing about this season, the pressure is definitely ramped up, but I don't think it's pressure on Mark Pope because I think he knows the day-to-day pressure of being the Kentucky basketball coach because he lived it for a couple of years as a basketball player at Kentucky. And so he wouldn't have taken the job if he didn't know. And I think the only thing you can ask for as a head coach, do I have everything needed to compete at the highest level of college basketball? And Mark Pope certainly does. And so I think if you ask Mark Pope, I think he'd certainly take his situation over whoever, the school that is last in spending in the SEC. I don't know if that's Mississippi State or whoever. I'm no disrespect. I'm just stating it as a fact. And so I only bring it up because, yeah, there's more pressure. But I think Mark Pope understands that. I think Mark Pope accepts that. And I think Mark Pope would love his situation to the alternative, which is I don't have enough, but I'm still expected to compete at the highest level. And so the pressure is ramped up. I will say, I think whatever coach said that, listen, I think there's obviously a little bit of shade. I don't think it's factually incorrect, though, that there is certainly more pressure, because I do think we all understand, if you follow college basketball, and if you're watching this pod in August, you certainly do, that Kentucky probably spent in the short conversation of most teams in college basketball. Now, we know the report was that they spent $20 million. I feel like Dr. Evil every time I say that. $20 million. I don't know if they spent $20 million, but they spent amongst the most in college basketball. We know North Carolina spent $14 million. And so to me, it's hard for me to get too upset, too worked up when when how much they're spending. And I think, to the coach's point, they are spending I don't think they're spending double maybe they are spending double what some SEC schools did. Spending triple and quadruple what certainly small schools have. So I don't think it's national championship or bust, but I do think the stakes are higher. I did find that quote very interesting. Another coach calling that team out and basically saying, yeah, you don't win it all. You got a lot of explaining to do. But again, I think Mark Pope understands that. And I think that's the reality of being the Kentucky basketball coach. And as I said, I don't think that he would trade that for anything else, any other opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. All right, producer Matt, we have any questions? And then we'll get out of here with that last thing that we got to go ahead and do. Anything interesting in the chat? Iron Kentucky says, NIL is the new reality. Are we supposed to apologize for being the best at it? Producer Matt, you can include this on this Kentucky clip when you clip it off, because it's a great question. And no, you shouldn't. And I love that attitude. I love the attitude of this is the new world. And Mark Pope has said it. Like, I haven't listened to the interview with Matt Norlander yet, but he said something about, we had the third-ranked schedule last year. I want to have the first-ranked schedule because this is Kentucky. And he said that in his early summer media availability as well. He said, we want to have the best schedule. We want to have the most NIL. We want to have the biggest attendance. We want to play in the biggest games. We're freaking Kentucky. And by the way, it's the same in football at Texas and Ohio State. Listen, these are the schools, I'm just using them as an example, Michigan, Penn State, whoever. No need to apologize. Own it. We love college basketball more than you. Suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up, whoever the coach is that said that, and deal with the fact that we ain't slowing down anytime soon, and we never will, because we're Kentucky. And I think that applies to other schools as well. I think it applies to Carolina. I think UConn with Dan Hurley is going to get whatever they need in this new world of NIL to be competitive. St. John's, as long as Rick Pitino's there, going to do whatever they need. Duke, certainly with John Shire. So no, I love it. I love it. Great comment by Iron KY. And no, absolutely own that sucker. I was going to say something that rhymed with sucker, but I'm glad I caught myself before we got out of there. Any other questions before we get out of here? Okay. Just because Alabama couldn't afford to pay Modi fair market value because that money is earmarked for the third string QB isn't the reason to get all whiny at Pope, Nate Oates. I don't know who said the quote. I don't know if it's out there. I don't know who said the quotes. Nate Oates, I love you, buddy. I'm not saying nothing. Could have been anybody. I mean, I can name some people I don't think it was. I don't think it was John Calipari because he's got a lot of money. But other than that, I don't even know who it would be. But Kentucky did take multiple really good players of multiple SEC rosters. Denzel Aberdeen at Florida, Mo Diabate, as that gentleman said, at Alabama. Again, I ain't accusing anybody of anything. But as I think Iron KY said, Kentucky fans should not apologize for being great at NIL, just like Oregon football fans shouldn't, just like I'm sure Texas and Texas A&M baseball are at the top of that list, just like UConn basketball, women's basketball, South Carolina women's basketball. Don't apologize for being the best. Don't apologize for caring more than everybody else. I freaking love it. All right. I'll tell you what. Okay, let's see. Is there anything that Mark Pope hasn't done for Kentucky in the first year as coach that he could have done? To me, he succeeded every single aspect of bringing Kentucky basketball back to the forefront. Darren, that's a great question. We could save that for a mailbag, but I will just say this really quick. The answer is basically no. Realistically, Final Four national championship are not happening in year one. It felt like those first-year coaches, there was a ceiling of the Sweet 16 or so. Dusty May at Michigan, Kevin Young at BYU, John Calipari at Arkansas, in addition to Mark Pope. The only complaint, and I think it's a little, I don't want to say it's nonsense, I just don't think it really matters, is the only complaint that I think people have is he hasn't landed that super marquee, out-of-state, 5-star high school prospect. But I think there's a lot of smart Kentucky fans and a lot of smart college basketball fans that realize 5 stars ain't what they used to be. And if you can get, if the choice is the 8th ranked player in the class who's not from your state, or, Mo Diabate, Rob Wright at BYU, Silas Demery at Connecticut, at UConn, Ian Jackson at St. John's. You take the dude who's been in college basketball. So I think that's the only argument that anybody could make. And I think it's mostly nonsense. All right, Matt, I'll tell you what, we're going on an hour plus here after we started a little bit late. For those of you who joined us and stuck with us, thank you so much for your support. We had crazy technical difficulties. I threw a little fit behind the scenes, said some words that I shouldn't have, but we got through it. Couple things before we get out of here. We cannot forget. One, want to remind everybody, so grateful, Circa Sportsbook, Franklin, Kentucky. We will be there over the course of football and basketball season. We will also be in Vegas this weekend for Circa Contest Weekend, and also SeatGeek. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres for $20 off your first purchase. By the way, if you have any interest in joining us when we get to Franklin, Kentucky, or our Vegas trips, if you're an Arizona fan, a BYU fan, you can always email me, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. Whatever list that we have, we're putting together, we'll make sure that you are included. All right, before we get out of here, there is one other person and group and partnership that I want to make sure to shout out. It's our friends, it's our partners, it's Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge Rams fan. Matter of fact, he invited me to the Rams preseason game, ironically, against the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh on Saturday. Well, I bring it up because he's a huge sports fan, and he was sitting on the couch one day. He said, I need to stop stuffing this gross, unhealthy food down my gullet. I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids will love, something I'll love. I need Collie Puffs. This is the alternative to the crap in your grocery aisle. And these are the snacks that you need to try. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. The best part is, though, that they do taste delicious. For more information and to try them out for yourself, this is what I need you to do. Go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com. ColliePuffs.com. And once you get there, if you use promo code Torres, TORRES, you get 15% off your purchase. ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres for 15% off your purchase. Also available on Amazon, no discount there. So ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres for 15% off. Thank you to everybody for your support. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back Tuesday night with a new episode of the Aaron Torres Pod. And oh, by the way, come Thursday, we'll be in Vegas. If you have any football questions, drop them wherever you want. We'll do some over-unders. We'll preview week 0. A lot to get to over the coming days. We appreciate